Okay, this video is using Blue Devil head gasket sealer on a 2017 Pacifica with a P0305. Now, on some previous videos, I showed some diagnostic testing where we concluded that this had a blown head gasket for cylinder 5. And we decided to take a chance on the Blue Devil. The leak was relatively minor. It was a persistent trouble code, but the engine was not consuming a lot of coolant, is what I should say. It did produce white smoke frequently, but the actual amount of coolant consumption was small, but the problem was just getting started. So we thought we might be able to nip it in the bud, and the repair cost for this would have been in excess of $6,000, with no necessary guarantee of success because it's not clear if it's a warped head, warped cracked block, cracked head. If there'd be a problem, was it just going to be limited to the rear head, or possibly should we also do something on the front head that might just not have failed yet, but would be coming up failing, who knows. But according to the internet, cylinder 5 is a prime spot. The rear head is more susceptible to have a gasket problem. So, but anyway, we decided to give this a try. And right now we're at the reinstallation procedure. So I just wanted to summarize briefly what we've done here. Step 1 says directions. Cooling system must be clean and free flowing before applying the gasket sealer. Well, yeah, there was no problem with the cooling system. It was free flowing. It says remove thermostat and flush cooling system using Blue Devil radiator flush. Now, we did use Blue Devil radiator flush, and we flushed with water, but we did not remove the thermostat until later on. We did the flush with the thermostat in place. We got around to removing the thermostat later. Anyway, I don't think that was a big deal, but that's the way it happened. Fill cooling system with water. Leave enough room for the recommended amount of Blue Devil. Now, these directions are not precise. They don't cover all cases. So, as you might know, if you're looking at this video, you cannot. Yeah, it doesn't even say this here, but there's no upper radiator cap. This is a pressure cap, and this is how you access the cooling system to add more coolant. So what we were supposed to do when it says leave enough room for the required amount of Blue Devil. Now in this case we're going to use half of this quart because of the size of this engine. Okay, we still have a half left. We could use it if we needed to. Okay. We did flush the whole system out with water and everything like that. But when it came to adding it back in, at the time, hold on, let me just hit pause here. Okay, I was just gathering my thoughts because we did this basically a week or two ago. And we did not follow the instructions exactly because the instructions don't apply to this vehicle exactly. Okay. We did manage to remove the thermostat, although what we found was, even just by looking online, that the thermostat was integrated into the housing. This is the thermostat housing. And it wasn't clear that it would be removable. All the indications were that it was not removable, and that you would have to somehow get a new thermostat housing with thermostat in it, and you would somehow, if you wanted to run this Blue Devil treatment with the thermostat out, you might have to possibly destroy one of the housings to get the thermostat out, and then possibly be lucky enough to still run it to use the Blue Devil. It wasn't clear, okay? But turned out my daughter was able to figure out a way to get the thermostat out of the housing. Okay, here's my daughter, Colleen. Colleen, can you please explain how did you get that thermostat out of the housing?
Looked like this. It felt like I was unscrewing it, and it just popped right out. It looks like there weren't actually threads here, so it seems as if this piece here that was in there was what caused it to feel like I was unscrewing it. But maybe I would have been able to just pull it out if I had tried there. I started trying to
maybe
unscrew.
not, because the little clip was, gripping,
Right.
and spinning it out is probably the easiest way actually to get it out.
Yeah, spinning it out is what works.
I have flattened the clip because we want to be able to reuse it after it was deformed after taking the thermostat out. I just flattened it, on the concrete floor with a hammer. Now we're going to put it back in, put the clip in, we're going to push the thermostat in, and then we're going to begin reassembly of the system with the housing, with the thermostat in it, because we're ready to put the coolant back into the system. We've already done the Blue Devil treatment. This is just putting the thing back together, okay? And let me just, spoiler alert, the Blue Devil treatment worked. It was two weeks ago, and the P0305 has gone away, and we operated it with water for 2 weeks. In the event that it came back, we
Put
would...
about 700 miles on it so far.
Okay, 700 miles. So it was, it was a tremendous success, and we still have a half a quart that we could repeat the treatment if we needed to. Okay, I just wanted to mention that there is a website. It's the frequently asked questions on the Blue Devil website. Frequently asked questions, and there's someone there who will respond to your questions. He's called Blue Devil Pro, and there are a lot of questions regarding the application of this material, particularly how it would apply to this vehicle with the external tank, pressure tank, so you can't actually add it to the radiator. And the situation is, when you look there and you see there's a question, what do I do, where do I put it, if you don't have an upper radiator cap, or radiator cap rather, the answer is do not put it in the coolant tank. You're supposed to administering it into the upper radiator hose. That's to get the material distributed through the system. Now, we ended up putting it into that overflow tank. When we refilled the system, it's not the overflow tank, it's actually a pressure tank. And it has the overflow capability built into it, but there's actually only one reservoir there. The overflow actually just spills directly out onto the ground through a little channel, okay? It's all part of the cooling pressure system right there. And we actually, when we went to refill it, according to this method, with water, and we left some room at the top, we measured the amount of coolant that came out. We added, and we stopped short by probably a quart, and we added the half a quart in here, and the system, it seemed to work. So there must have been enough spreading of this material into the cooling system, even though we didn't add it into the upper radiator. This was essentially a risk. I thought we were going to have to do this twice, because I thought that the original one would not take, because that coolant would not necessarily get distributed properly. And anyway, it turns out it did work. Okay, fine. Now we're going to start reassembly here, and I'll use pause and I'll show the reassembly steps. Now, okay, this is the reassembly of the thermostat with housing. I put that little clip into the little hole, and then I had to really wrangle this to get it to push through that clip, okay? Didn't want to go, slid off, but in other words, the tabs on the clip had to deform downward in order to accept that part of the thermostat. And anyway, it's now it's in, and actually it seems pretty secure. So we're just going to put this back in, and then we're going to go from there, okay? Okay, we're going to reassemble the thermostat. Now, disassembly is going to be the exact reverse. I have to apologize, but we didn't film this, taking it out. But we're going to put it back in the reverse order. The first thing that Colleen's going to do is to put the upper radiator hose onto this part, okay, of the housing, okay? Okay, correction. The first step, we slid this rubber hose back on this tube. We did not have to loosen any of the bolts holding this together, okay? We were able to slide this back on. We have yet to connect it to the upper radiator hose. We have yet to connect the electrical connection. We have yet to put these hose clamps on, and we have yet to put in the three 10 millimeter bolts. Okay, so there's more steps to go here, but that's the first step. Okay, step 2 was to connect the upper radiator hose into the thermostat, and the next step would be to put a little clip in there to keep that from coming apart. Okay, the clip is in place. Colleen was able to pry that out just with a screwdriver blade. Okay, nothing special, and she just put it in with her hand. Okay, next step is going to be what, Colleen?
I'm going to put the bolts back in.
The three 10 millimeter bolts. Okay, great. Okay, we're using 10 millimeter deep wall socket. Colleen put them all in by hand because she has very agile hands. And now she's going to snug them up with the 10 millimeter deep socket.
That clamp is faced in the way.
Colleen has secured the 10 millimeter bolts, and now she's going to put an electrical connector on. Okay. She clipped in the electrical connector, and this system is now ready to refill with coolant. It's totally drained right now. We have resecured the hose at the bottom of the radiator, and this should be ready to add the 50-50 mix, and then it should be ready to start up. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that in doing this Blue Devil job, which was successful, we did have potential problems. One was we added the coolant to this pressure tank, not to the upper radiator hose. Didn't seem to matter. We weren't sure originally if we were going to be able to get the thermostat out of the housing, but it turned out we were able to. Okay, so that's just a couple of the problems that we encountered. Okay, we started the engine, we added the coolant, turned on the heater core. Everything seems to be fine. No leaks at the thermostat housing location. One thing I forgot to mention, when we took off the thermostat housing, the gasket was stuck to the engine block. We did not bother to try to pry it off because you just left it there. And then when we put the thermostat housing back on, we just put it right over the gasket in place. Okay, so this job looks like it's totally done, and good night.